The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is just not worth the cost, and now his carbon tax scheme is completely falling apart. First, his own budget watchdog proved conclusively that most Canadians are worse off even with the rebate. Then he was humiliated into granting a partial carve-out because his Liberal MPs were sick of the backlash they were getting from their voters. And now a majority of premiers are demanding an emergency carbon tax conference to put forward better ideas than his punishing tax. If he's so sure that his carbon tax is so good, then why doesn't he just sit down and listen to the Premier?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, later today we will be voting to advance the Sustainable Jobs Act. It is a critically important act in the context of growing an economy that will thrive in a low-carbon future. It will ensure that workers and environmental organizations have a seat at the table when we are discussing Canada's Green Economic Plan. The Conservatives have obstructed at every turn, including introducing 20,000 robo-amendments. We are building a strong economy for the future. The Conservatives, by contrast, are engaging in legislative vandalism.
Before I pass on the floor to the honourable member from Regina Capel, I'll ask all members, please only the members who do have, who are recognized by the Speaker to let their opinions be known. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Well, Mr. Speaker, none of that is true. But what is true is that yesterday, in a historic vote, a majority of MPs demanded that the Prime Minister sit down and just listen to the premiers. It's baffling to understand why he's so afraid of meeting with them. It's not like they're going to ask him to put together IKEA furniture or help them move. They just want to put forward better ideas than hiking prices on everything. Yes. What is he so afraid of? Is it Doug? Is it Blaine? I know Scott Moe, Mr. Speaker. He's a really nice guy. Why doesn't the Prime Minister just meet with him?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Scott Moe said he sat down and pored over the data and could not possibly find a more effective way to combat GHG emissions than this government's policy on pricing pollution. You know, right now, today in this House, we are discussing untold employment and economic opportunity for Canadians, including the people of Regina Capel. If he won't stand up for the workers at Regina Capel, we will, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Mégantic-L'Érable. The Prime Minister has spent the last 2 weeks reminding Canadians of the disasters he has caused over the last 8 years: passports, immigration, late job insurance payments, inflation, interest rates, and of course the doubling of rent costs. And the list is very long. And yesterday his Liberal members voted against the Conservative motion that was adopted by this House to have a meeting with all premiers. The last meeting was in 2016. Will he or will he not call this meeting? Or does he prefer to continue destroying everything through interference without consulting the provinces? What is he scared of? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, and we act. On the other hand, Canadians hear that there is absolutely no action. And no action or inaction is not a strategy. Inaction is not a plan. Inaction is not an option, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we have a plan for Canadians. We will invest in a greater number of housing units. We will invest in childcare, Mr. Speaker. We will invest in jobs. We will invest in growth. Mr. Speaker, we'll let them create their slogans while we will continue to actually work for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. After 8 years of this government, let us talk about its record, Mr. Speaker. Housing costs have doubled. Immigration waiting times are never-ending. Over 800,000 Quebecers are using food banks every single month. Our streets are less and less safe. Violent crime is on the up. And bad news, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister now wants to impose his incompetence on the provinces. It's like giving the key to our house to the very vandals who have just ransacked it. Will the Prime Minister finally admit that he has absolutely no skill in managing his own government and that he should, for once, mind his own business? The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, we could talk about vandals, but let us talk about climate vandals who are just on the other side of the House, Mr. Speaker. the member on the other side wants to know what the benefit of carbon pricing is. It's not difficult. All he has to do is look and speak to the member right behind him, who was part of the very first government in North America to price carbon, because it's the right thing to do, Mr. Speaker. It's the right thing to do for the economy. It's the right thing to do in fighting climate change. It's the right thing to do for Canadians.